Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Dr. Sahara Omar. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist practicing here in the state of Texas. In today's video, I wanted to dissect with you guys a little bit more on what is a conflict resolution styles. You guys probably heard at the cultural level that people have different conflict resolution styles, what it is, where does it come from, and how do you overcome it as well too, okay? All right, so when we think of conflict resolution styles, typically in the therapy space, we're thinking of how are you resolving any issues that come up in your relationships with people. And in general, as a marriage and family therapist, I'm looking at all types of relationships, whether it is your relationship with your family or your relationship with your significant other, even your relationship with your own children, friends, and even strangers as well too, right? You might say we don't have relationships with people, strangers, but typically you are interacting with people. So as long as you're interacting with people, how are you working with people, right? Like how are you resolving some of these issues? We have typically 4 different types of conflict resolution styles that we see. There are 3 that are considered dysfunctional. The goal is to learn how to have what we call a compromising conflict resolution style. Okay? So these initially our conflict resolution styles, they come from our childhood again. I don't know if you guys noticed the pattern in this channel. It's always going to go back down to where did we learn some of these things, right? If we had healthy family, typically they're going to model for us what that looks like. If we come from dysfunctional families, unfortunately, we will fall into the other 3 options that we have, okay? So let me just break them down for you guys. I'll start with the right top corner and then kind of work our way back to the left side, okay? So one style that we have is called avoidant. With avoidant conflict resolution style, typically one person is completely out. If both people are avoidant, it's going to be loss, right? With this style, there's no true resolution. There's no answers to things. In arguments, for example, this is a person that just ends the argument altogether and says, hey, I don't want to talk about this anymore. Could we leave it alone already? Wow, this is another thing that we talked about already. Why are we talking about it again, right? Very avoiding, right? Like very much so like if I can take an out, I will take an out. Why is this considered not healthy? Because of the fact that there is no resolution, right? Like there's no closure, there's no answer to the end of that conflict. And probably with, if you are avoidant yourself and you're dealing with other avoidant people, typically the relationships stay stagnant. It doesn't grow beyond the initial conflict that shows up. Another option that we have is accommodating. In this style of conflict resolution, one person is winning and the other one person is losing. In this way, these are people pleasers typically, right? Saying yes all the time. If you're accommodating in your style with conflict resolution, something simple as what do you want for dinner? One person would say, let's just do pizza. If you're accommodating, you will say yes right away. People who are accommodating typically also do not like conflict. It doesn't feel easy to go back and forth. It's easier just to say yes and leave it alone because that will get us to the least resistant path essentially. Okay, why is this not healthy? Typically, it's not healthy because you're not able to voice what you think and what you want. Your sense of being an individual gets lost in this style, and we want to learn how to voice what we think and what we want and how we feel about certain things, so that way we are seen and we're respected and we matter as well. Okay. And then the last option that is not healthy is called competing. With competing conflict resolution style, both people are willing to go to toe-to-toe, right? You probably heard people say, I'm petty, for example, or I go for tit for tat. That's that competition sense, right? Typically, the outcome would be one person is going to win and the other one is going to lose. But the level of chaos that comes with competition-oriented conflict resolution style is stressful, right? And anything that is high stress leads to a lot of mental health struggles as well too, whether it's anxiety, depression, addiction issue. Usually it comes back down to how are we dealing with people, or how am I dealing with myself as well. With competing styles, there is no grace, there's no willingness to understand the other person. It's always my way or the highway. why it's not healthy. It leads to more chaos, right? Like it leads to more conflict usually. Typically when I work with couples who have this sense of, I'm gonna win this argument no matter what, there is no resolution, and unfortunately at some point therapy comes to quote unquote to an end because of the fact that they're not willing to find that middle ground for what they need, right? Typically when I work with couples who are high level of conflict, high level of competition, they're just simply not meant to be together, right? But because one of them is not calling it out, and both are willing to go back and forth, and typically it leads to more chaos, unfortunately, right? And sometimes as therapists, we have to step in and say like, hey, this is not okay, this is not healthy, and calling it out. In some cases, it does work when we call it out and people can calm down and kind of find that compromising space. But majority of couples, if they have been dealing with so much resentment, unfortunately, this level of competition leads them to wanting to win the argument no matter what, okay? And then, so all three are considered unhealthy: the avoiding, accommodating, and competing. What we want, the golden one, is compromising, okay? With compromising, you're giving in a little bit of yourself, and the other person is giving in a little bit of themselves. Typically, people who are very self-aware and they have done the work and they are working on themselves and they're healing, their goal in life is just to find a middle ground with people, right? Like they're not going to argue, they're not going to yell, there's no disrespect, there's no name calling. They just want the quickest way to find a compromise where everybody can win. And the reality of compromise is you're also going to lose something, right? And wanting to be okay with that. And sometimes before you can even engage in any conflict with people, you have to ask yourself, are you willing to lose that part, right? Sometimes with certain arguments, if it's linked back to our values, things that we really care about, and our core beliefs, it is really gonna be harder to compromise, right? So this is where I highly recommend you usually get to know yourself and know what you want and what you're okay with, and know your boundaries. I made a video on boundaries that I highly recommend for you guys to look back as well too, so that way you know clearly like who you are and what you're okay with, and in return you're only going to attract and tolerate people who are willing to compromise with you and who are on the same page as your values as well too, okay? Typically with compromising style, there is, like I said, back and forth of dialogue, and there's a resolution where both people will find an answer that works for them as well, okay? All right, I don't know if you guys also noticed there is a link to our attachment style as well. People who are avoidant typically have avoidant attachment style. People who are accommodating have a anxious attachment style. They just want to say yes because they don't want to lose the person. People who have disorganized attachment styles are very competitive. They like to compete with any kind of resolution. And then our healthy compromise people are your securely attached people, okay? It goes back down to, like I said earlier, to our childhood. If you grew up in a household where everything is a competition, your brain thinks that this is how you deal with conflict. It's all about competition. If you dealt with people who were very dominating over you, your typical brain will say, well, I just need to accommodate, or maybe perhaps just avoid altogether. On this side, on your right side, the avoiding and accommodating typically is the people that I meet in therapy a lot on an individual level, because life taught them, for example, growing up, that they don't know how to stand up for themselves. So some of the skills is teach them how to voice what they think and voice what they need, and not be afraid, and hold their ground and set their boundaries. Few people who are in that competing space come to therapy. Like I said, I usually meet them in couples work. When I work with families specifically, like if it's like a mom or a daughter, sometimes I do see that competitive style of conflict resolution show up. I haven't met a lot of son and father. Usually men struggle still, that stigma of coming to therapy. But typically the competition one is the hardest one to work with, even as a therapist. And the goal is to teach people to get to that compromising space, okay? The way we overcome this, right? I don't want you guys just to come to this channel by just labeling things as what already the world does. I also want to teach you guys how do you overcome some of these difficulties, right? In order for us to become compromised, or learn how to compromise in conflict resolution style, we want to first recognize which style do you lean into, which one is your dominant one. reflect, ask yourself, where does it come from, right? Because the brain always wants to know, where is this coming from? And then as you are learning how to voice what you think and what you want and what you like and what you do not like, as you are spending time working on yourself with your therapist, hopefully you arrive at compromise, right? Like the point of us becoming compromised is when we're very strong with our boundaries and who we are and what we like. It gets easier when somebody says, I want to go to the park, and the other one says, I am open to go at 6 p.m., right? That's a compromise versus, why do you always want to go to the park? Why can't we just go anywhere else? That's unnecessary name calling, going back and forth, yelling, information that doesn't even fit into the dialogue, right? Your response typically should be, if you do want to participate or if you do not want to participate, versus complaining about why to participate in the first place, right? Part of it is also maturity as well too. As we get older, the brain is not fully developed until we're 25, I usually say. That's what the literature shows. But then we also now have to consider how trauma delays that part of maturity. So typically on average around 5 more years. 30 is when most people become a little bit more self-aware and a little bit more respectful of themselves and other people around them as well too. So with that, maturity also has another factor to it that we need to also consider. So as you are going along with your journey, just reflect, which one do you fall into, where does it come from, and learn and ask yourself, who are you? What are the things that you're okay with and what you're not okay with? And hopefully the people that you're selecting, and I do want to make a video on overcoming the myth of attracting, it's a little bit more mythical. We do choose people, right? So when we are choosing people in a romantic relationship or even just dealing with people in general, we have to be self-aware to recognize what is their style and if they're willing to compromise with you as well. Because if the person that you're dealing with is not willing to compromise with you, the question becomes, why are you also wasting your time trying to get them to compromise? Alrighty, I hope you guys liked the video. Please feel free to hit that thumbs up. Also, feel free to leave me a comment, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you.